All told, more than 150 Americans of every age, of every race, of every background exercised their right to vote. They voted early. They voted absentee. They voted in person. They voted by mail. They voted by drop box. And then they got their families and friends to go out and vote. Election officials, the entire electoral system, withstood unrelenting political attacks, physical threats, intimidation, and pressure. They did so with unyielding courage and faith in our democracy. With recount after recount after recount, court case after court case, the 2020 election was the most scrutinized election ever in American history. Challenge after challenge brought to local, state, and election officials, state legislatures, state and federal courts, even to the United States Supreme Court not once but twice. More than 80 judges, including those appointed by my predecessor, heard the arguments. In every case, neither cause nor evidence was found to undermine the national achievement of administering the historic election in the face of such extraordinary challenges. Audits, recounts were conducted. In Arizona and Wisconsin, in Georgia, it was recounted 3 times. It's clear. For those who challenge the results and question the integrity of the election, no other election has ever been held under such scrutiny and such high standards. The big lie is just that, a big lie. The 2020 election, it's not hyperbole, suggests the most examined and the fullest expression of the will of the people in the history of this nation. This should be celebrated, an example of America at its best. But instead, we continue to see an example of human nature at its worst, something darker and more sinister. In America, if you lose, you accept the results. You follow the Constitution. You try again. You don't call facts fake and then try to bring down the American experiment just because you're unhappy. That's not statesmanship. That's not statesmanship. That's selfishness. That's not democracy. It's the denial of the right to vote. It suppresses. It subjugates. The denial of full and free and fair elections is the most un-American thing that any of us can imagine, the most undemocratic, the most unpatriotic, yet sadly not unprecedented. They want to make it so hard and inconvenient that they hope people don't vote at all. That's what this is about. This year alone, 17 states have enacted, not just proposed, but enacted, 28 new laws to make it harder for Americans to vote. Not to mention, and catch this, nearly 400 additional bills Republican members of the state legislatures are trying to pass. The 21st century Jim Crow assault is real. It's unrelenting. And we're going to challenge it vigorously.
Joe Biden should be saying this every single day, given the continued assault on voting rights from Republican-led legislatures around the country. In all, there were 389 voter suppression bills introduced in 49 states, all of them the direct result of Trump's big lie that the election was stolen. Which is why, even in the face of zero evidence to actually back it up, Trump and Republicans continue to pretend that it's real, because it's not actually about proving fraud, it's not actually about catching any nefarious behavior. The point is to use it as a justification to continue passing these laws. This is a long-term strategy, all predicated on an outright lie. That's why it makes no difference when we point out the facts, that no fraud was proven in more than 60 court cases, in the DOJ and the DHS, according to Republican secretaries of state, and to recounts and audits. If this was truly about fraud, those concerns would have been put to rest when the issue was litigated to within an inch of its life. but it didn't matter what any authority said because it's not about the truth, it's about spreading the lie because that lie is what's most convenient for them. And so knowing that Republicans aren't operating in good faith, knowing that their goal is to subvert democracy for their own political benefit, the answer here cannot be some bipartisan negotiation. That's like working with an arsonist to put out fires. The answer has to be passing both the Voting Rights Act and the For the People Act, because without federal protections, an unhinged Republican Party will stop at nothing to continue entrenching their own power. They'll continue gerrymandering so that even when Democrats get more votes in each state, it's Republicans who will take the majority of House seats. They'll continue blocking methods of voting used by Democratic voters, like vote by mail and early voting. They'll continue lowering the number of drop boxes in cities where there are higher concentrations of Democrats. They'll empower partisan poll watchers whose only goal is to intimidate voters at the polls. And in some cases, they'll even give Republican-led legislatures the power to unilaterally overturn the election results just at the suggestion of fraud, which goes without saying will be leveled by Republicans. We're seeing all of these things in GOP-led states across the country. So when you wonder why we can't work with Republicans, this is why. The fact is that Republicans aren't interested in democracy because democracy relies on serving the will of the majority. Only Republicans don't bother appealing to the majority, but rather a shrinking minority of white voters. And instead of appealing to more people, they've opted instead to just rig the system so that they don't have to. So they'll continue pushing for tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, they'll continue trying to take healthcare away, they'll continue trying to undermine women's reproductive rights, they'll continue vilifying immigrants, they'll continue pretending that climate change doesn't exist. They'll continue promoting their wholly unpopular agenda because if they can rig the system, it won't matter what they stand for and they can win elections. That's what they're banking on right now. So Joe Biden should be making these speeches every day and using his bully pulpit to pressure the lone Democratic holdouts in the Senate to at least create a carve-out for voting rights in the filibuster, so that it doesn't take an impossible 60 votes to protect our democracy, as opposed to the 51 votes it takes to confirm a Supreme Court justice or overhaul our entire tax system, both of which have unilaterally benefited Republicans. When it comes to voting rights, especially in the face of an assault like this one, no amount of action is too much, and we should be doing everything humanly possible to get it done. Failure can't be an option here. Republicans realize what they stand to gain, so it's time that Democrats realize what they stand to lose. If you enjoyed that video and you're looking for a deeper dive, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. It's a no BS look at the top stories of the week, along with interviews with the top names in politics, like Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, and more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, if you want to see more videos like this one, click the subscribe link right here on this screen to join the more than 1 million people who've already subscribed to my channel. And finally, to donate to my Don't Be a Mitch Fund, where I'm raising money for a whole raft of different voter outreach and voter registration groups in the closest states ahead of midterms in 2022, including Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Texas. You can find that link on this screen as well. Thanks for watching.